This is the Volkswagen ID.4, which you can currently get for around 46,000 euros. This version you cannot get anymore, as it has been replaced with the Performance Max version of this car. There's around 6 different versions that have come out in total, and it's also the second generation full electric mass production car that Volkswagen have released after the ID.3. There is 3 versions that you can currently configure, so that being the Pro Performance, the Pro Formation or 4Motion for the 4-wheel drive, and also the GTX version, which is obviously the biggest one you can get. What we're going to do in this video is take a look at this one, which is the first edition, which is the very first edition. That's obviously what it says in the name. And let's get right into the video by starting with the front. So let's go take a look at the front. Obviously we have our lights, which are LED lights on the side. Not IQ lights, well, everything in here is basically the first edition, so you couldn't change that much when it came to the ID.4 first edition. So for instance, you have the LED lights. You don't have a bar in here. Well, it's a bar, but it's not an LED bar, so it doesn't produce any light or anything like that. But it has this nice white strip which goes through into the lights, which looks pretty nice. And then in the middle, you obviously have your new Volkswagen logo. And then you have this kind of honeycomb style down here as well, with the radiator actually being very far back. So I think there's around 10 centimeters of space between that, which is quite massive. And then also on the side, you do have your intakes, which actually provide some aerodynamic changes towards the wheel, which is very nice. And that is basically the front. Looks pretty aggressive, and also, well, not aggressive, but it looks kind of bulky, which looks interesting. So it makes the car look pretty fat in my opinion, which is interesting. Not the biggest fan of the design of the whole car in general, but that's just the way I think of it. And you can also see that the bonnet in the front is obviously very small, or very compact, due to the fact that you obviously don't have an engine in there. Let's talk about the engine. So let's go right in the front of the compartment, where there's obviously no engine, but we'll take a look at it. Taking a look at the front, obviously we don't have an engine because we don't need that. We have just some electrical jibabla in there. So in total it's going to produce around 204 horsepower, exactly the same as the new Performance Max upgrade version, with 310 Newton meters of torque. It's going to get you from 0 to 100 in around 8.5 seconds, which again, with the new one Performance Max, I don't know why they named it Performance Max when it's 8.5 seconds, not that very sporty, so it shouldn't be named Performance in my opinion. But this has the exact same engine, the first edition, obviously with the 8.5 seconds. But that is basically the front. What we're going to do is on the side, we're going to take a look at the charging capacity and also the battery size. That's what we're going to take a look at there. So let's go on over to the side. Moving on over to the side, first of all, you notice our 20-inch wheels, which are the Damen alloy wheels. Those are standard with the first edition wheels, so obviously 20 inches, as well as up here we have our first edition plaque, which is special for the first edition, as well as having black side mirrors standard with the first edition, as well as them being heated and foldable, which is pretty nice. We do have this trim, which is silver, which goes all the way through to the rear pillar. That is also standard on the first edition, as well as a roofing capacity of 75 kilograms with the roof rail there in silver as well, and the black roof obviously. We have rear tinted windows, which are also special or standard for the first edition, as well as having some aerodynamic handrails which go into the or integrated with the door. And then we have a ground clearance of, well, for this car, it's not that big of a ground clearance. You'd expect the car to be a little bit higher up because it's kind of like a crossover SUV kind of thing. But the car in total is around 4 meters and 58 centimeters long, which is pretty decent. It definitely feels, well, it doesn't feel that big from the outside, but when you're inside, it feels like a massive SUV because you have that much space in there, which we'll check out in a second. Moving further on, we have our charging port with a Mode 3 Type 2 charger in here, which is, has a battery capacity of 77 kilowatt an hour. Or kilowatt, and it's going to take you around 34 minutes if you charge it at 125 kilowatt an hour, but you're usually going to be getting around in the high 90s when it comes to the charging rate, so it's going to take you a little bit longer, up to 40-45 minutes, something like that, if you charge it at a faster charger, which is pretty nice. But again, it's the exact same storage when it comes to the newer versions, and has a range of almost 500 kilometers. The newer ones have a little bit more, and this car is going to weigh at around 2.8 tons, which is heavy. The batteries alone are almost 500 kilograms. Let's take a look at the rear and also the trunk. Okay, taking a look at the rear of the car, obviously we have our LED lights again, which look pretty nice as they go back pretty far, and they also go almost fully through, apart from being interrupted by the new Volkswagen logo on the back. But that looks very nice, and they have this kind of small honeycombs in there, which looks pretty nice. But again, one thing I'm not a big fan of is all the plastic down here. So this is plastic, and just so much cost saving when it comes to Volkswagen, as well as on the side here where you also have some more lights. But this looks pretty nice. I do like this kind of like lip out of just the normal chassis, which looks pretty nice. And then further down, obviously we don't have an exhaust because it's an electric car, so it just makes beep beep beep. That's the only thing it does. And a very nice license plate. I love that thing. Nonstop Driving, definitely a great channel if you want to check that out, and make sure to subscribe. And that is basically it for the back, as well as having a spoiler up here, which, well, kind of like a lip out spoiler, not a complete spoiler, but it goes down pretty far, around 15 centimeters, and with the light up here as well. So let's take a look in the trunk. Taking a look at the trunk, which is pretty massive. Obviously you expect that from an SUV, but there is a ton of room in here where you can store quite a lot of things. When you flip it over, you're going to have around 1,575 liters of storage, which is pretty massive, and as well as having a pretty nice headroom. So when you're going under here, well, it's not the best thing, but it fits perfectly for me. But if you're over the height of 180 or 1.80 m or almost 6 foot, you're definitely gonna hit your head on there. You do have a big lip when it comes to putting stuff in, so when you try to get something out, like a big load in here, you can't just drag it out, you're actually gonna have to lift it up, so it's not the greatest thing. And also your loading cable, if you load something in and forget, oh, I want to charge the car, not the greatest, because you're gonna have to take everything out and then flip it up, so you can actually take the charger out, or you can just store it somewhere else. That is basically it for the back. Let's hop into the back seats. Taking a look at the back seats. First of all, massive amounts of space. The person in front is adjusted to a 2-meter tall person, or the seat in front. So I have a lot of space, and obviously that also is due to the fact that you don't have a combustion engine, so you don't have the crankshaft going through in the back here, making you have a lot of space in here, so you can just put something in there. You can even lie across there if you're pretty small. Down here you have two USB-C type charging ports, and then further down you have climate control for the two people in here, so you have one for the right and one for the left, but you can't actually adjust the temperature of that. You have to do that in the front. And also a little storage space. I don't know what the hell you're gonna put in there, because you can maybe put a cigarette in there. There's not much use to that. Seats are very comfortable. The upholstery is very nice with this kind of fabric, and also having the brown leather in there, and also in the front and in the middle. Very comfortable. You can put this down as well, and also fold it over, so you can have storage space that goes straight through. And there's two cup holders in here, which are fairly small, so you're not going to fit big bottles in here, but that's just how it is. Up here you have lights which are touch control as well, which I'm not the biggest fan, because everything is touch sensitive. We'll see that a lot in the front. One thing I'm not a big fan of as well is that the side is piano black, so scratches and fingerprints are going to be visible on here as soon as you get the car. So if you put your hand on there, boom, you have to clean the thing. And then the material is very cheap. Up here plastic, and then some leather down here, and then further down very cheap plastic as well. So not the greatest, but you do have a whole blackout roof, which is not plastic, which is pretty nice. Sitting in the front, obviously the first thing you notice is, again, very spacious, with this center console being very big. And having like a sort of tunnel down here, which is pretty interesting. So you can give handshakes to the other person through a tunnel down there. You have a ton of space in here, so you can store lots of stuff. You can almost put a tablet in there. And then further on, you obviously have some space in here. And the quality is actually not that bad, because these things are not plastic, for instance. These are for your cup holders. So these are actually pretty nice when it comes to that. But other than that, quality, again, not the greatest, because you're going to have plastic, some nicer plastic up here, but then further down it gets cheap. That is one thing I'm not a big fan of when it comes to Volkswagen, because they cost save on everything. Speaking of cost saving, you can't actually, well, they only have two buttons on the side for your windows, one for the front, one for the left, one for the right. And then you have to press a separate button to enable to adjust the height of the rear windows, meaning that button could break and you will not be able to control the back windows from the front, which is not great, because that button often fails to actually activate and recognize your touch. Very nice when it comes to this. I haven't actually seen many cars have something like this, an armrest, which is pretty nice. I like that, because when you drive that, it's very nice, instead of having like a whole segment that goes down, so you can't share it with your neighbor. Seats are very nice again, same as in the back, feel pretty comfortable. Steering wheel, obviously having the first edition special plague on there as well. but having the stupid touch sensitive controls, which I hate. I'm not going to talk about the infotainment system because it's the same one as on the GTE, for instance, the same one as on every single Volkswagen that we've covered so far. But one thing I am going to say is this is the first electric car that they have where it has the uploaded version, so the software updates can come via the cloud. And that is one thing. There was a lot of reviews of this car where the infotainment system is very slow, but with the update this has actually gotten pretty fast, or faster, and is nicer now. But again, you have the touch sensitive controls for your climate change and stuff like that. Like I said many times, I hate that. And then in the front you have your drive select on the side, which is interesting. Never seen that as well. So you have like this, well, Mercedes has it, but they have a twist or a handle that you can pull, but this one is actually like you flip it over and stuff like that, and a very small screen on the front. But one thing I do like is that your play and pause buttons, or your go and brake button, they're actually play and pause buttons, which is a kind of fun feature in there. But that is basically it for the front, and that is basically it for the video. So if you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time for the next update. And also, if you want to check this out on German, or in German, you can check it out in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.